welcome to all. The topic of this session is impact assessment and its approaches. You are aware that the government at central as state level, they bring different programs and policies, and the objective behind this program and policy are to bring some desirable change in the economy, in the society, on the individuals, and this desirable change may be in terms of the income, maybe in terms of the increasing in income, maybe increasing the employment opportunity in the country, may bring some change in the productivity of the natural resources like land, labor, and farm machinery, bringing some infrastructure development, to facilitate the marketing, particularly in agriculture sector. So there are different objectives, and the purpose of this policy is basically to help the people of the country and make the country prosperous. And then we as a government or the government at state at central level, they measure the impact of the policy or program which have been implemented in the country, and there are different indicators. They identify the indicators and they want to see what are the changes in the indicators so that they can measure the impact of the policy or program in the country. So in this session basically we are going to discuss about the impact assessment of the programs or policies, and there are two types of income assessment. One is the ex ante and one is the ex post assessment. Ex ante assessment is done actually before implementation of the program or policy. Actually in this assessment, in the ex ante assessment, they want to they estimate the likely impact of the policy or program on the economy. And in case of the ex post assessment, actually the country or the government or the policy implementer, they measure the impact of the actual policy implementers on the people, on the society, on the country as a whole. So both type of assessments can be done, ex ante and the ex post. And in this session basically we will be discussing about the meaning of the impact assessments, its approaches, its models to measure the impact. So let us start with what is the meaning of the impact assessment basically. And when we have the concerns about the long term changes as well as the sustainability or sustainable change in the society, in the lives of the beneficiary or the participants, we have the impact assessment. So impact assessment is basically to measure the long term changes or sustainable changes in the society, in the life of the people. And generally we conduct the impact assessment after the completion of the projects through retrospective analysis. Retrospective analysis means from the beginning. So based on the available information, we conduct the impact assessment. Then we can define the impact assessment as the collection of the baseline information, analysis of the socio-economic situation and the political context also, and then identification of the indicators. We have to identify the indicators, like if the program is on the income enhancement of the farmers. So here we can identify the indicators like the change in the production, change in the productivity, or the cost reduction, or the change in the income of the farmers. So there may be different criteria. So in the identification of the indicator, then setting of the clear objective and strategy for the implementation. So here again for the impact assessment we have to fix the procedures to conduct the complete study. So here setting of the objective, identifying some indicators as well as the strategy for the implementation of the impact assessment study we have to do. We have a lot of importance and significance of the impact assessment, and basically it aims to provide feedback to help the improve the design of the program and policy. So based on the study of the impact assessment, we can help, or basically we provide the feedback in the policy formulation process, and actually it also help in the improving the accountability on the part of the executor, on the part of the implementers. So actually if there is some lacuna, we can ask there is a problem, we could not achieve the desired impact on the society. So here we can fix the accountability on the part of the policy implementer also. And this impact assessment is basically for the dynamic learning. It provides the learning based on the current situation, so based on the changing scenario. So it is basically provide dynamic learning. It is a tool of dynamic learning and allowing policy maker to improve the ongoing programs and ultimately better allocate funds across the program. And this impact assessment basically they estimate the magnitude of the effects will with clear causation. So with clear causation means when we measure the impact, we also study what are the reasons behind achieving this impact. So if there is a failure, so we also study what are the possible reasons, and if there is a success, what are the probable reasons. So we also conduct the causation analysis in the impact assessment. Then in the impact assessment study, we can identify the hazards to the society from the proposed development activities, like and then we can reduce or eliminate this potential risk to the environment and undertake risk communication as part of the process. So if we can identify the hazards from the impact assessment studies, we can we can communicate to the policy implementers or policy makers that these are the different risks are there. So we can improve the process of the policy implementers. So that's why this is the important achievement or important finding from the impact assessment. And here we can identify the way in which the proposed development can promote the growth and equity. So based on the impact assessment study, we can and identify the way of proposing the or developing the new proposal for the growth and equity in the country. And through the impact assessment, we also identify and address the underlying social, environmental and economic impact of the development impacts on the society. So there are different types of impact assessment. One impact assessment is from the policy impact assessment. So here we see the impact of the policy, and then we have different types of impact assessment, like the environmental impact assessment, the social impact assessment, the health impact assessment, integrated impact assessment. So here in the assessment, all type of changes in all the all the facet of the life, all the facet of the economy, all the facet of ecology, we are together measure in one study. So that is basically we can say the integrated impact assessment. Then we have different approaches to the impact assessment. So basically these approaches determine the achievement of the desired effects that attributed to the interventions. And here we explain the unintended positive or negative consequences. So sometimes the effect are there, the impact are there which are unintended. So that also we can identify through the policy assessment study. In the impact assessment study, not only we simply measure the outcome or direct outcome of the proposed or implemented policy or programs, we also basically measures the related outcome or the outcome due to some other related factors which are correlated to that particular outcomes, and that other factors they contribute to the outcomes. So that type of measurement we can also do through the impact assessment study. And in the impact assessment study, generally we make the counterfactual estimates. So counterfactual estimates basically, we know that what will happen or what might have happened if this policy program had been not implemented. So here we see the situation, we ask the participant or beneficiary, if this particular program could not have implemented in the area, what will be situation, what was this, what the situation have been there now. So we measure that type of so from that counterfactual estimates we can really or actually we can find the real effect of that particular policy. So actually there are different approaches, and there are different criteria. So choice of impact assessment approaches is compounded by multiple criteria of the evaluation. So there may be different criteria of the evaluations, and the important criteria or objective for impact evaluations are the growth. We want to measure the growth in terms of GDP or in terms of the output production, or we want to measure the impact of the efficiency, like increase in the economic efficiency or the production efficiency at farm level, or we want to know the status of the sustainability, like environmental and ecological consequences from the policy and program. Then we want to also see the impact on the equity. Equity means the reduction of the disparities across the region or some social strata or gender. And then we also see the impact of the trade issues, like increasing export or decreasing export or import also. Then we also see the impact on the health and nutritional issues through the policy implementation, and through impact assessment study we want to know the impact on the health and nutritional issue. And there are two broad approaches of the impact assessment. One is the descriptive approach, another is the modeling approach. And descriptive approach, when we talk about, they are less well defined methods, and they are probably the most heterogeneous. So there is no fixed prescribed steps or procedure in the descriptive approaches. So they are comparatively, when we talk about the modeling approach, they are the less defined in their procedure. And this descriptive approaches, they are basically empirical studies and make use of the both quantitative and qualitative data. So empirical study means they are based on basically the observations of what is going on the situation on the ground level. So what impact it has brought, what impact it has changed on the production, incomes, or maybe different parameters. So it is basically on the empirical studies when we talk about the descriptive approach. And it involves the collection analysis of ex post information on the particular policy and interventions. Actually, when the policy programs or event has already happened, then we collect the data and analyze the data for to achieve the or to measure the this difference between or to measure the impact of the policy or program. So here not only the outcome, we also measure the way of the policy or program implemented and the change in the welfare of the society or particular person. And here we construct a plausible explanation for the observed changes in the target indicator. So if we have found there is a change in the income level of the people, so we also try to construct that what are the probable reasons for increase in the income of the people. So we also try to have a plausible explanation for the growth, for the impact. And these such descriptive approaches or study based on the descriptive approaches, they are potentially useful in a number of ways. When we talk about the descriptive approaches in comparison to the modeling approaches, the methodology is often insufficiently developed or explained, and actually we select the descriptive approach methodology based on the requirement and based on the current situation. So do not sufficiently examine the causal chain. We see the explanation why this happened, but we do not have a sufficiently examine the causal chain, why this particular results or why this particular impact happened on the society. So and then if we collect the data, we observe some information, we observe some qualitative and the quantitative information on the indicators, and then we compare this result like before and after approach or with and without approach. So here we have the information on the particular area where the program have been implemented, and then we have the control groups where or when the program have been not implemented. So then we compare the results, and actually in the most of the cases in the descriptive approaches, we ignore the counterfactual questions, why what would have been happen if there is this this program. So and there is uncertainty of the data used, reliability in analysis and the interpretation in reaching conclusions. So there is some uncertainty, we cannot verify the reliability or validity of the data, and so that's why we can say they are the less defined or prescribed the methods under the descriptive analysis. And actually we have the this selective use of descriptive analysis recommended for the impact assessment studies. and this method or methodology is basically tailor-made or used or a case specific for a particular situation. So, we can develop the methodology as per the requirement or as per the particular case. Now, we will move the modeling approach, and this modeling approach is the more defined or prescribed or more systematic studies, and they are basically they use the economic analysis to construct or a theoretical model of the linkage between the policy change and its impact. So, they are basically a economic analysis and based on some sound theoretical model. So, there is some prescribed assumption or hypothesis is there, and based on that we construct this model in the form of economic analysis. And parameters of the model derived from the empirical analysis of real data. So, then actually this what will be the parameter in the modeling approach that we derive from the empirical analysis of the real data, and accuracy of the model can be tested by using the model to replicate the empirical data for previous period. So, here we can test the validity or reliability of the model by using that particular data for the that particular method for the previous year. So, we can establish the applicability to that particular model. And advantage of the modeling approach that they provide an explicit theoretical explanation of the causal chain linkage, and there are some limitations also there of the modeling approach, like there is an absence of sufficient empirical reference point. So, there is no particular reference point we find in case of modeling approach, and assumption and prediction of the model may be too general sometimes. They are simply some common basic model, and then we establish the linkage with the particular situation. And this modeling approach basically they are restricted to the predicting the aggregate impact on the economic welfare. And this system of modeling approach or modeling technology, they are very complex. It requires a lot of data and skills and knowledge to use this modeling approaches. And advantage is that we can test the hypothesis, specific hypothesis we can test using this modeling approaches, and we can also establish the statistical significance of the parameters or coefficients. So, that is another good point when we use the modeling approaches. And there are a number of the combination of tools can be included in the methodology selected. So, actually when we talk the parameters or the area of the studies, so we can include in a model different social tools, like the tools or the combination of the tools or based on the parameters or area of the studies. Like social tools, they are basically social impact assessment, the participatory poverty assessment, the beneficiary assessment, social capital assessment. These are the different social tools. Then we have the direct impact analysis tool, like average and marginal incidence analysis, the poverty mapping, the public service delivery. Then we have the behavioral models like supply and demands analysis, behavioral incidence analysis, the household models. And then we have the partial and general equilibrium models like social accounting matrices and the computable general equilibrium models. Then we have the tools linking microeconomic behavior with the macroeconomic framework. So, here basically we can use different types of tools based on our requirement in the impact assessment studies. And there are different tools available for the impact assessment, and a policy or program may have multiple impact, and there are several tools to measure such impacts. And the mostly actually we can categorize these tools into 5 categories. One is the scoring model, another is the economic analysis or economic surplus model, the programming model is there, in simulation model is also there, then econometric model is also there. So, here let us start with the scoring model, and they are the commonly used model for the impact assessment, and we also call them as a congruence model. And this scoring model basically they measure the impact on a set of the indicators, and these indicators may be the qualitative or quantitative, and the indicators are compared in with and without or before and after framework, and we assign some weightage to each indicator to obtain the weighted index of the impact of the policy. So actually we give the really relative importance to the different indicators based on their contribution, based on their share, based on their desirability in the society. And then actually we found that we can compare this net impact across the groups and region over the time. So they are the most common model for impact assessmenting. And there are this scoring model, they have some advantage like can be used in a relatively short period of time, and they are the transparent methods. They are simple and widely used in case of the impact assessment. And this scoring model are also criticized based on the basically we give the subjective weightage to different indicators. So suppose we have the impact assessment study on the income. So here the increase in the production or decrease in the cost of the production. So here we assign some indicators or some weightage to the increase in the production, or then some weightage to the reduction in the cost. So their contribution, this weightage is basically subjective. That is the drawback we can say of the scoring model. Then we have the economic surplus model, and they are the very important tools and having wide acceptance internationally and for ex ante impact analysis. So if actually we want to know the likely impact of the policies or program on the economy, on the societies, so we use the economic surplus model, very common model. And this economic surplus model, basically we assume the welfare effect of the policy change in a conventional, in a comparative statistics, and the partial equilibrium model of supply and demand in a market, and they measure the change in the consumer and producer surplus. So here basically we measure the impact of the program on the consumer surpluses, how much additional consumer are getting for their consumption purpose out of the program or policies, or in similar manner the producer also how much additionally they have now with them after the program implementation. So we measure the impact in terms of consumer and producer surpluses in the, and economic efficiency and distribution criteria can also be added in this model. So here we can also measure the efficiency of the production process or the distribution of the effect on the different part of the stakeholder. That type of criteria we can also include in the economic surplus model. There is some problem with the economic surplus model, like if there are a large scale area for the program implementation, we cannot use, we have difficulty because large types of data are required for the economic surplus model, and actually such data generally do not exist. So that's why this model cannot be applied if we have the large scale study. And like an ex ante analysis, this model to incorporate the expert opinions and crude estimates on the important parameters. So actually here also we need some the opinion of the experts, or we use some crude estimates, like we provide the weightage to the indicator in the scoring model. So in similar way here also we use some crude estimates, like elasticity of the demand and supply, and then the probabilities of adoption or rejection of the said policy. So here we provide some estimates. So accuracy level of these results are constant by the availability of the best estimates. So if we have the correct demand elasticity, we can measure the impact in a correct way or in accurate way. Then we have the programming model. Actually this is the mathematical optimization, or we can say the mathematical modeling approach. And here this modeling approach we can use to choose investment portfolios, like there are different investment opportunities are there. There are different investment scenario is there, so we can choose the best one, and by maximizing a multiple goal objectives functions given the set of the resource constraints. So here actually we can incorporate the resource constraint situation also in the programming model. So here we have the advantage that we can incorporate the budget, manpower and other constraints in the system, in the model, and here we facilitate the inclusion of the multiple goals and objectives. So we can actually we can see the impact on 2-3 parameters or indicators. Here the opportunity is there, and here we can identify policy impact over time also, if it's constructed in a multi-period format. So if we want to see the change over the period of time, we can use the programming model. So, and there is a disadvantage that it requires a great deal of analytical ability, data and time. Then simulation model, actually it is also likely, or it is similar to the programming model, and basically here the mathematical relationship among the variables are exposed to different scenarios to assess the best outcome. So actually we have some some risk or uncertainties. So here basically we can add the different scenarios. Suppose the rainfall will be there or not, or how much rainfall will be there. So that type of variability scenario we can add in the mathematical relationship or in the simulation models. And advantage are that here we have the flexibility in the incorporating the many factors, and that and we can create both simple and complex tool, and then we can incorporate the optimizing or ranking procedures also, and then we can readily include the probabilistic information, whether the rainfall will be there or not, whether prices will increase by 5% or 10%. Such type of the probability information we can use in the simulation model. And there is a major disadvantage, like this model is relatively complex and it requires extensive amount of data, time and skilled analyst. Econometric model is also there. They are also widely used, and they are the important export approaches. After the implementation of the program, we use generally the econometric models, and they assess the impact of the policy changes on several econometric variables like production, income, consumption, employment, etc. And numerous studies have been conducted using these econometric models, and they are the major instruments of change or evolution of the policy change. And like we have the production function, we have the supply function, we have the consumption function, we have the profit function. So all such in these functions are related to basically econometric model. Actually the selection of particular tools is also very important, and it required consideration of the certain factors like types of policy we want to see. We want to measure the impact of the policy and the stakeholders and their spatio-temporal implementation patterns, and legitimacy of the using estimates of average in place of the distribution. Then there are risk factors associated with the policy and stability of the benefits imputed to the policy. These are the different factors we should consider while choosing the correct model for impact analysis. And now we can sum up the session, like we have the ex ante and ex post impact analysis assessment tools, and the impact assessment is done to measure the achievement of the desired effects of the policy intervention. And there are two approaches of impact assessment. One is the descriptive approach, another is the modeling approach, and there are several tools to measure the impact assessment and can be grouped into 5 categories, and we have discussed about that. The scoring models are there, the economic surplus models are there, the programming model is there, simulation model is also there, and then econometric model is also there. And we have to carefully select this model in order to assess the impact of any policy or a program. Thank you very much.